I told my parents I was finally pregnant, and my mother looked at me like I'd just confessed to a crime. She didn't smile. She didn't hug me. She tilted her head, narrowed her eyes, and said, "Well, that's just perfect. Another mistake." I felt the air leave the room. Graham's hand tightened around mine under the table, but I couldn't look at him. I couldn't move. I just sat there, staring at the woman who was supposed to be my mother, wondering if I'd heard her correctly. "Denise," my father said quietly, but he didn't correct her. He never did. "What?" she snapped, eyes still locked on me. "You think I'm being cruel? She's 32 years old, Richard. She's barely stable, and now she's bringing a child into this?" I finally found my voice. "I've been married for 3 years, Mom. I have a good job, a home, a husband who loves me. Why would you say that?" She laughed. It wasn't a warm sound. "Because you've never thought anything through in your life, Elena. Not college, not your career, not even your wedding. And now this?" Graham shifted beside me. His voice was calm, but I could hear the steel underneath. "Ellie and I have been planning this for a long time. We're excited. We thought you'd be, too." My mother ignored him completely. She turned to my father. "Did you hear that? Planning. As if anything she's ever planned has worked out." Before I continue, tell me where you're watching from right now. I always love seeing how far this channel reaches. And if you're into real-life family stories with a twist, hit like and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. I'd spent years trying to understand why my mother hated me. I used to think it was something I did, something I said or didn't say. But the truth is simpler and so much worse. I was born, and that was enough. My sister Vanessa was the golden child, always had been. She got the college fund, the down payment on her first apartment, the birthday parties with actual guests. When she announced her engagement, my mother cried happy tears and started planning the wedding that same night. When I told them I was engaged to Graham, my mother asked if I was sure he knew what he was getting into. "I've been trying for over a year," I said quietly, my voice shaking. "This pregnancy, it's a gift. I thought you'd be happy for me." My father finally spoke. "We just think you should have waited, Ellie. You're not—" "Not what?" I interrupted. "Not ready? Not good enough? Not Vanessa?" The silence that followed was deafening. My mother stood up, smoothing her blouse like she was preparing to deliver a verdict. "You want the truth? Fine. You've been a burden since the day you were born. Everything we gave you, you wasted. Every opportunity, you ruined. And now you're going to bring a child into this world and do the same thing to them." I felt Graham's hand on my back, steadying me, but I couldn't breathe. "You don't mean that," I whispered. "I absolutely do." My father didn't defend me. He just looked down at his plate, the way he always did. Graham stood up slowly. His voice was quiet, but it cut through the room like a blade. "We're leaving." "Good," my mother said. "And don't come back here expecting us to play grandparents. You made your choice." Graham pulled out his phone, typed something quickly, and slipped it back into his pocket. Then he looked at my father, not my mother, but my father, and said, "You're going to regret this, both of you." My father's head snapped up. "Excuse me?" Graham didn't answer. He just helped me to my feet, his hand firm and protective on my lower back, and guided me toward the door. As we reached the hallway, my mother called after us. "You think you're better than us now, Elena? You think marrying some quiet nobody makes you special?" Graham stopped. He didn't turn around. He just said, very calmly, "You have no idea who I am." And then we left. I cried the entire drive home. Graham didn't say anything. He just held my hand, his thumb tracing circles on my palm, and when we finally pulled into our driveway, he turned to me and said, "They're not going to get away with this." I didn't know what he meant. Not yet. but I could see it in his eyes, something cold, something certain, something I'd never seen before. I spent the first 10 years of my life thinking I was loved. That's the cruelest part. I didn't know I was the scapegoat until I was old enough to see the pattern. Vanessa got the piano lessons. I got told we couldn't afford them. Vanessa got the family vacations. I got left with my grandmother. Vanessa's college tuition was paid in full. Mine came with a lecture about loans and responsibility. When I graduated high school with honors, my mother said, "Well, let's hope you can actually do something with it." When Vanessa graduated, barely, she got a car. I used to think it was about money, that maybe my parents were just stretched thin, but it wasn't. It was never about money. It was about me. Graham and I didn't speak much the day after the announcement. I sat on the couch, staring at nothing, replaying my mother's words over and over. Another mistake. He brought me tea. He sat beside me. He didn't try to fix it. He just let me feel it. "I should have known," I said eventually. "I don't know why I thought this time would be different." "Because you're a good person," Graham said simply, "and you wanted them to be good people, too." I laughed bitterly. "They're not?" "No," he agreed. "They're not." 2 days later, my mother called. I almost didn't answer, but some part of me, the part that still wanted her to apologize, to take it back, made me pick up. "Elena," she said, her voice clipped, "we need to talk." "About what?" "About this pregnancy situation." I felt my chest tighten. "It's not a situation, Mom. It's a baby." "Are you sure?" I froze. "What?" "I'm just saying," she continued, her tone maddeningly casual. "You've always been dramatic. Are you sure you're actually pregnant? Have you seen a doctor, or is this another one of your—" I hung up. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. Graham appeared in the doorway. "What did she say?" I couldn't repeat it. I just shook my head. He crossed the room in 2 strides, took the phone gently from my hands and set it on the table. Then he pulled me into his arms and held me while I cried. "I hate them," I whispered into his chest. "I know. I hate that I still care. I know that too." That weekend, my parents hosted a dinner. They did this every few months, invited extended family, neighbors, anyone they wanted to impress. It was performative. It always had been. This time, they invited us. I didn't want to go, but Graham said we should. "Why?" I asked. "Because," he said, his voice calm and deliberate, "I want them to see you. I want them to see us. And I want them to know exactly what they're losing." So we went. The moment we walked in, I knew it was a mistake. My mother greeted us at the door with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Elena, Graham, so glad you could make it." My father nodded from the living room where he was pouring drinks for guests. Vanessa was there too, draped across the couch with her fiancé Kyle, laughing too loudly at something someone said. She looked up when I walked in. Her smile was razor sharp. "Well, well," she said, "look who showed up." "Vanessa," my mother said lightly, a warning in her tone, but she was smiling. I felt Graham's hand on my back again, steady, grounding. Dinner was unbearable. My mother made little comments all night about my weight, about my job, about how surprising it was that I'd managed to find someone like Graham. Vanessa piled on. "I mean, no offense, Ellie, but you're not exactly the maternal type, are you?" Kyle laughed. My father said nothing. Graham set his fork down very carefully. "Actually," he said, his voice even, "Ellie's going to be an incredible mother." Vanessa raised an eyebrow. "You sound so sure." "I am." "Must be nice," she said, leaning back in her chair, "having someone believe in you for once." I felt something crack inside me. My mother leaned forward, her voice syrupy and false. "Vanessa, don't be rude." Then she turned to me. "But Elena, you have to admit, this is all very sudden. And given your history—" "What history?" Graham asked, his tone dangerously soft. My mother blinked. "Well, she's always been impulsive." "She's sitting right here," Graham said. "If you're listening right now, help me prove something wrong. My mother said I wouldn't even reach 100 subscribers. But I believe stories like this deserve to be heard. Help me show her that these tales matter. Please subscribe to Revenge Bite, and let's keep breathing life into stories that were never meant to stay silent. Now, let's continue." Vanessa stood up, glass in hand. "You know what? Let's just say it. Ellie's always been the problem. She's dramatic. She's needy. And now she's pregnant, and we're all supposed to pretend like this is a good idea?" The room went silent. I looked at my mother, at my father, at the guests who were suddenly very interested in their plates. No one defended me. Not one person. My mother's voice was soft, almost kind. "Elena, sweetheart, we're just worried. You've never been stable, and bringing a child into that—" "Stop," I said. She blinked. "Excuse me?" "Stop pretending you care." My voice was shaking, but I kept going. "You've never cared. Not about me, not about my life, not about anything I've ever done. So don't sit there and act like this is about the baby. It's not. It's about me. It's always been about me." Vanessa laughed. "Oh, here we go. The victim routine." My mother's mask finally slipped. "You want to know the truth, Elena? Fine. You were an accident. We didn't plan you. We didn't want you. And every single day since, you've reminded us of that mistake." The words hung in the air like smoke. I couldn't breathe. Graham stood up slowly. His voice was ice. "Say that again." My mother's eyes flicked to him, and for the first time she looked uncertain. "I said," Graham repeated, his tone deadly calm, "say that again." My father finally spoke. "Graham, I think you should." "I think," Graham interrupted, "you should both listen very carefully, because this is the last time I'm going to say it." He turned to me, his expression softening just slightly. "Ellie, we're leaving." I nodded, unable to speak. As we walked toward the door, my mother called after us. "You're making a scene, Elena, as usual." Graham stopped. He didn't turn around. He just said, very quietly, "You have no idea what you've just done." And then we left. I didn't cry this time. I just felt empty, like something inside me had finally burned out. Graham drove in silence, but when we got home, he pulled out his phone, made a call, and said 3 words. "It's time. Come." I looked at him. "Graham, who did you just call?" He met my eyes, and for the first time since I'd known him, I saw something dangerous there. My family. Graham's family didn't call ahead. They didn't ask permission. They simply arrived. 3 days after my mother called me an accident in front of a room full of people, Graham told me we were going back to my parents' house for another dinner. I stared at him. "Are you insane?" "Trust me," he said. "Graham, I can't go back there. I can't sit through that again." He took my hands in his grip firm and warm. "Ellie, I need you to trust me, just this once. Can you do that?" I looked into his eyes, those calm, steady eyes that had never lied to me, and I nodded. "Okay," I whispered. "I trust you." What I didn't know was that my parents had been busy. While I'd been home, trying to process the fact that my own mother had called me a mistake to my face, they'd been making phone calls, talking to relatives, talking to neighbors, talking to anyone who would listen. The story they were telling wasn't the truth. It was something much worse. I found out from my cousin Jenna, who texted me the morning of the dinner. "Hey, is everything okay? Your mom said you've been struggling with your mental health." She sounded really worried. I read the message 3 times before I understood what was happening. They were rewriting the narrative, making me the unstable one, the unreliable one, the one who couldn't be trusted. I showed Graham the text. He read it without expression, then handed my phone back. "They're protecting themselves," he said quietly. "By destroying me?" "Yes." I felt something harden inside me, something that had been soft and hopeful for too long. "I'm done," I said. "I know. I mean it, Graham. I'm done begging them to love me. I'm done trying to prove I'm worth something. I'm just done." He kissed my forehead. "Good, because tonight, you won't have to prove anything." The dinner was at my parents' house again, smaller this time, just family. My mother greeted us at the door with a smile that looked almost genuine. "Elena, Graham, I'm so glad you came. I think we all need to clear the air, don't you?" I didn't answer. I just walked past her into the house. Vanessa was already there, perched on the arm of the couch like a cat. She gave me a little wave. "Hey, sis." I ignored her. My father stood by the fireplace, drink in hand. He looked uncomfortable. He always did when he knew he'd done something wrong, but didn't want to admit it. "Ellie," he said carefully, "we're glad you're here. We want to talk, really talk." "Sure you do," I muttered. Graham's hand found the small of my back again, grounding me. My mother ushered us into the dining room, where the table was already set. Too formal, too perfect, like she was trying to prove something. We sat. My mother poured wine, sparkling cider for me, which felt like a mockery, and then she folded her hands on the table. "Elena," she began, her voice soft and measured, "I think we got off on the wrong foot the other night." I almost laughed. The wrong foot. "I was surprised," she continued, "and maybe I didn't express myself well. But you have to understand, this is a big decision, and we just want to make sure you're ready." "For what?" I asked. "For motherhood." There it was, the trap. "And you don't think I am." My mother's smile was thin. "I think you've struggled, sweetheart. You've always been fragile. And that's not a judgment, it's just the truth." Vanessa nodded like she was in a therapy session. "We've all seen it, Ellie. You've always been emotional. And now, with a baby on the way." "Stop," Graham said quietly. Everyone looked at him. "Stop pretending this is concern," he continued, his voice calm but firm. "This is control, and it ends tonight." My father frowned. "Graham, I don't think—" "You don't think what?" Graham interrupted. "That Ellie deserves respect? That she deserves to be treated like an adult? Or do you just not think at all?" The room went silent. My mother's mask cracked just slightly. "We're her parents. We have every right to—" "You lost that right," Graham said, "the moment you called her a mistake." Vanessa scoffed. "Oh, come on. She's being dramatic. She always does this." I turned to her, and for the first time in my life, I didn't try to smooth things over. I didn't try to make peace. "Do you even like me?" I asked. She blinked. "What? Do you even like me, Vanessa? Or have you just been going along with them this whole time because it was easier?" She opened her mouth, closed it, then shrugged. "Honestly, I don't think about you that much." And there it was. The truth I'd been avoiding my entire life. I didn't matter to them. I never had. I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. "I need air." Graham stood with me. "I'll come with you." "No," I said, my voice breaking. I need a minute, please." He hesitated, then nodded. "I'll be right here." I walked out onto the back porch, wrapping my arms around myself. The air was cold, sharp. It felt good, real. I heard voices inside, my mother's, rising, Graham's, steady and unyielding. And then I heard something else. A sound overhead, low and powerful. I looked up. The sky was darkening, but I could still make out the shape, sleek, Black, expensive. A helicopter. I turned toward the house just as Graham stepped onto the porch. He wasn't smiling, but there was something in his eyes. Something that looked like victory. "Graham," I whispered, "what did you do?" He took my hand. "I told you, my family's coming." The helicopter landed in the clearing behind my parents' property. The wind from the blades whipped through the trees, and I watched, frozen, as the door opened. A woman stepped out first. Tall, elegant, silver hair swept into a perfect chignon. She wore a coat that probably cost more than my car. Behind her, 3 more people, 2 men and a woman, all of them moving with the kind of confidence that comes from never having to prove anything. Graham squeezed my hand. "They're here." "Who are they?" I breathed. He looked at me, and for the first time I saw something vulnerable in his expression. "My family," he said quietly, "the Whitmores." And then I understood. Graham wasn't just my husband. He was heir to one of the oldest, wealthiest families in the country. And my parents had no idea. I'd never asked Graham about his family. That sounds impossible, doesn't it? 3 years of marriage, and I'd never asked. But the truth is, he'd always deflected. He'd told me his parents lived overseas, that he wasn't close with them, that family was complicated. And I'd believed him because I understood complicated families. I never imagined this. The woman, the one with the silver hair, walked toward us like she owned the ground beneath her feet. And maybe she did. Graham stepped forward. "Grandmother." She stopped in front of him, studied his face for a long moment, and then pulled him into a brief, controlled embrace. "Graham," she said, her voice crisp and elegant, "you called." "I did." She turned to me, and I felt her gaze like a spotlight, sharp, assessing. Not unkind, but not warm either. "And this," she said, "is Elena." I swallowed. "Yes, ma'am." Her lips twitched, almost a smile. "Vivienne Whitmore. It's a pleasure to finally meet you." Finally. The word hung there. The 2 men approached next, one older, one younger. Both of them carried themselves with the same quiet authority as Vivienne. "Charles Whitmore," the older man said, extending his hand. "Graham's father." I shook it, my mind reeling. "It's nice to meet you." The younger man grinned. "Sebastian, the responsible brother, and you must be the one who finally got Graham to settle down." The woman behind them stepped forward, her eyes bright with curiosity. "Arabella. But everyone calls me Bella, and I've been dying to meet you." I looked at Graham. "You told them?" 3 days ago, he said quietly. "After your mother?" He stopped. "After that dinner." Vivienne's expression didn't change, but I saw something flicker in her eyes. Something cold. "Yes," she said softly. "Graham told us everything." I felt my chest tighten. "Everything?" "Everything." Before I could respond, the back door of my parents' house opened. My mother stepped out, her face a mask of confusion and barely concealed panic. "What's going on?" she called. "Who are these people?" Vivienne turned slowly, and I watched my mother's expression shift as she took in the helicopter, the clothes, the presents. My father appeared behind her, and Vanessa right after, her mouth slightly open. Graham walked forward, his hand still holding mine. "Mom, Dad, Vanessa, I'd like you to meet my family." My mother's smile was instant, bright, fake. "Oh," she said, her voice suddenly warm. "Oh, how wonderful! We've been hoping to meet you. Graham's told us so much about—" "He hasn't," Vivienne interrupted smoothly, "but I've heard quite a bit about you." The temperature dropped 10 degrees. My mother's smile faltered. I'm sorry?" Denise Carter, Vivian said, as if tasting the name. And Richard. And Vanessa, of course. She said Vanessa's name like it was an afterthought. Vanessa, for once, didn't say anything. My father cleared his throat. We're so glad you're here. Please, come inside. We were just having dinner. There's plenty. We won't be staying, Charles said, his voice polite but final. My mother blinked. Oh, well, perhaps another time then. Perhaps, Vivian said, but her tone made it clear there wouldn't be another time. My mother's desperation was almost palpable. We've been so excited about the baby, haven't we, Richard? My father nodded quickly. Yes, of course. We're thrilled. Are you? Vivian said. It wasn't a question. My mother laughed nervously. Of course we are. Elena's our daughter. We love her. Vivian turned to me. Her expression softened, just slightly. Elena, do you want to leave? I stared at her. What? Do you want to leave? She repeated. Right now, with us. I looked at Graham, at his family, at the helicopter, still running behind them. And then I looked at my mother, at the panic in her eyes, at the way she was scrambling, trying to rewrite the narrative one more time. I thought about what I'd say. I thought about walking away, about never coming back. But then I thought about the trust, about the money my grandparents had left me, the money I'd never seen. And I realized I didn't want to run. I wanted answers. I met Vivian's gaze and said, very clearly, not yet. Her smile was small but approving. Good. My mother stepped forward, her voice high and strained. Elena, sweetheart, I don't understand what's happening. Why are you... You called me a mistake, I said quietly. She froze. You told me I was an accident, that you didn't want me, that I've been a burden my entire life. I didn't mean... Yes, you did. The silence was suffocating. Graham's father, Charles, stepped forward. His voice was calm, measured. Mrs. Carter, we're not here to cause a scene, but we are here to make sure Elena is protected. Protected? My father repeated. From what? From you, Sebastian said flatly. Vanessa finally found her voice. This is insane. You don't even know us. Bella smiled. It wasn't kind. We know enough. My mother's face was pale now. I don't know what Graham's told you, but... He told us the truth, Vivian said, and we intend to verify it. My father frowned. Verify what? Vivian didn't answer. She just looked at me, and I saw something in her expression that I'd never seen in my own mother's eyes. Belief. Elena, she said gently, we're staying at the Langham, room 412. If you need anything at all, you call me. She handed me a card, thick, embossed, simple. Vivian Whitmore, private line. I took it with shaking hands. Thank you. She nodded once, then turned to my parents. We'll be in touch. And then, without another word, she walked back toward the helicopter. Graham's family followed. Graham turned to me. Are you sure you don't want to come with us tonight? I nodded. I'm sure. But Graham... I know, he said quietly. I'll explain everything, I promise. He kissed my forehead, and then he was gone. The helicopter lifted off, and I stood there, watching it disappear into the sky. When I finally turned around, my parents were staring at me. My mother's voice was shaking. Elena, who was that? I looked at her, really looked at her. And for the first time in my life, I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just clarity. That, I said quietly, was the family I should have had all along. And then I walked past her, got into my car, and drove home. Graham didn't come home that night. He texted me around midnight. Staying with my family tonight. We need to talk. I'll be home in the morning. I love you. I sat on the couch, staring at Vivienne's card, trying to process everything that had just happened. My husband, my quiet, steady, uncomplicated husband, was a Whitmore. I pulled out my phone and did what I should have done years ago. I Googled him. The results were immediate, overwhelming. Whitmore Industries, EST 1,891, net worth $4.2 billion. Graham Whitmore, youngest son of Charles and Margaret Whitmore, notoriously private, declined board position to pursue independent ventures. The Whitmore Foundation, Education, Healthcare, Historical Preservation. There were photos. Old ones, mostly. Graham at charity galas, always in the background. Graham at family events, looking uncomfortable in a tuxedo. And then I found one that made me stop scrolling. Graham and his grandmother, Vivienne, at some kind of award ceremony. He was younger, maybe 25, and she had her hand on his shoulder. The caption read, Vivienne Whitmore and grandson Graham at the Whitmore Legacy Gala. Family is everything, says the matriarch. I put my phone down and cried. Not because I was angry, not because I felt betrayed, but because for the first time in my life I understood what it felt like to be protected. Graham came home the next morning with coffee and an apology. I should have told you, he said, setting the cups down on the kitchen table. From the beginning, I should have told you who I was. I looked at him. Why didn't you? He sat down across from me, his hands wrapped around his own cup. Because everyone I've ever dated wanted the name, the money, the access, and when I met you, you just wanted me. My throat tightened. I still just want you. I know. He reached across the table and took my hand. That's why I called them. Because you deserve a family that sees you, Ellie, and mine does. What did you tell them? Everything. He paused. And my grandmother wants to help. Help how? He hesitated. She wants to look into your parents' finances. I blinked. What? Ellie, you told me your grandparents, your mom's parents, left money when they died. You said your mom told you there wasn't anything for you, that it all went to maintaining the estate. That's what she said. My grandmother doesn't believe her. I stared at him. You think they stole from me? I think, Graham said carefully, that your parents have been controlling the narrative your entire life, and I think it's time someone checked the facts. I felt something cold settle in my chest. How would she even? Vivienne knows people, lawyers, investigators, people who can pull records quietly. He squeezed my hand. But I need your permission. I won't do this unless you want me to. I thought about my grandparents. My grandmother Evelyn, who used to braid my hair and tell me I was smart. My grandfather Theo, who taught me how to play chess and told me I could be anything. They died within 6 months of each other when I was 19. My mother had handled everything, the funeral, the estate, the will. I'd never seen any paperwork. I'd never even thought to ask. Do it, I said. Graham nodded. Okay. But Graham, I looked at him, my voice shaking. What if there's nothing? What if I'm wrong? Then we'll know, he said gently, and we'll move forward. But Ellie, I don't think you're wrong. 3 days later, Vivienne called me. Elena, she said, her voice calm and measured. Can you come to the Langham? There's something you need to see. I met her in a private suite. Not the room she'd mentioned before. This one was bigger, a conference room almost. Graham was already there. So were Charles, Sebastian, and 2 people I didn't recognize. Elena, Vivienne said, gesturing to the strangers. This is Harrison Knox, our family attorney, and Dana Klein, a probate specialist. I shook their hands, my heart pounding. Please, sit, Vivienne said. I sat. Graham sat beside me, his hand finding mine under the table. Dana opened a folder. Miss Carter, or, I suppose, Mrs. Whitmore, We've been reviewing your maternal grandparents' estate, Theodore and Evelyn Carter, deceased 2019. I nodded, yes. Their will was filed in probate court. It's a matter of public record. She slid a document across the table. This is a copy. I stared at it. The language was dense, legal, hard to parse. Can you just tell me what it says? Dana's expression softened. Your grandparents established a trust. 50% of their estate was to go to your mother, Denise. The other 50% was to be split between you and your sister, Vanessa, 25% each. My stomach dropped. What? The estate was valued at approximately $1.2 million at the time of death. After taxes and fees, that's roughly $900,000 in distributable assets. Your share should have been around $225,000. I couldn't breathe. Your mother was named as trustee, Dana continued, which means she was responsible for managing and distributing the funds according to the will's terms. But I never got anything, I whispered. No, Harrison said quietly, you didn't. Graham's hand tightened around mine. We pulled the trust account records, Dana said. Your mother made several large transfers shortly after your grandparents' death. One to Vanessa's account, $230,000. Another to an account under her own name, $520,000. And mine? Dana's expression was grim. Nothing. The room tilted. She stole it, I said, my voice barely audible. She stole my inheritance. Technically, Harrison said, it's embezzlement and breach of fiduciary duty. She was legally obligated to distribute those funds. She didn't. I looked at Graham. His face was hard, cold. There's more, Dana said gently. More? She slid another document across the table. Your mother submitted an affidavit to the probate court, claiming that you'd received your distribution. She forged your signature. I stared at the signature. It looked like mine, close enough. But it wasn't. She lied. I breathed. She lied to the court. Yes. I felt something break inside me. Not sadness, not anger. Just clarity. What can we do? I asked. Harrison leaned forward. We can file a claim against the trust, demand repayment with interest. We can also report the forgery to the authorities, though that would likely result in criminal charges. How long would it take? Depends on whether she fights it. If she settles quietly, a few months. If she fights, years. I looked at Vivienne. She'd been silent this entire time, watching me. What do you think I should do? I asked. She considered me for a long moment. I think you should decide what kind of justice you need, Elena. Do you need the money, or do you need them to face consequences? I don't know. Then take your time, she said. But know this, my family will support you, whatever you choose. I nodded, my throat tight. Thank you. Graham drove me home in silence. When we pulled into the driveway, I finally spoke. They knew, I said, the whole time. They knew they'd stolen from me, and they still treated me like I was the problem. I know. And Vanessa, she got her share. She got everything. I know. I turned to him, tears streaming down my face. Why do they hate me so much? I don't know, Ellie, he said, his voice breaking. But it's not about you. It never was. I cried until I couldn't anymore. And then, for the first time in my life, I stopped crying for them. My mother called 2 days later. I almost didn't answer, but Graham was with me, and he nodded. Put it on speaker, he said. I did. Elena, my mother said, her voice bright and false. Sweetheart, I've been thinking. I know things have been tense, but with the baby coming, I really think we should put all of that behind us. I said nothing. I mean, we're going to be grandparents, she continued, as if the past month hadn't happened. And I've been looking at baby shower venues. There's this beautiful place in Greenwich. Mom, I interrupted. Stop. Stop what? Stop pretending. There was a pause. Then, carefully, I don't know what you mean. Yes, you do. Her tone shifted, colder. Elena, I'm trying to be gracious here. I'm trying to move forward. For the baby's sake. You don't care about the baby. Of course I do. It's my grandchild. Then why, I said, my voice shaking, did you steal my inheritance? Silence. Long, heavy silence. I don't know what you're talking about, she said finally. Yes, you do, Grandma and Grandpa's trust. You were supposed to give me $225,000. You gave Vanessa hers, you kept the rest, and you forged my signature on a court document. That's absurd. Who told you that? Does it matter? Yes, it matters. Because someone is filling your head with lies, Elena. Just like always. I laughed bitterly. You forged my signature, Mom. That's not a lie. That's fraud. I did no such thing. Then you won't mind if we take it to court. Another pause. Longer this time. When she spoke again, her voice was ice. You're making a mistake. No, I said. You made the mistake. I'm just finally seeing it. I hung up. Graham pulled me into his arms, and I let myself breathe. But it didn't end there. Over the next 2 weeks, my parents launched a full-scale charm offensive. My mother showed up at my door with baby gifts. A crib, a stroller, a cashmere blanket monogrammed with Baby Whitmore. I know we've had our issues, she said, smiling like nothing had happened. But I want to be here for you, Elena. I want to be a grandmother. I closed the door in her face. My father called too. He was softer, apologetic even. Ellie, I know your mother can be difficult, but she loves you. We both do. And we're so excited about this baby. Can we please just talk? No, I said. And I hung up. Vanessa sent a text. Seriously, you're really gonna blow up the family over money? Grow up. I blocked her number. But the worst part was the social campaign. My mother started telling people, friends, neighbors, distant relatives, that I was unstable, that the pregnancy hormones were making me irrational, that I was turning my back on my family because my new in-laws were filling my head with lies. She posted on Facebook, praying for my daughter during this difficult time. Mental health is so important, especially for expecting mothers. Please keep her in your thoughts. I wanted to scream. But Graham's family had a different approach. Don't engage, Vivienne said calmly. Let her perform. Let her exhaust herself. We'll handle the rest. What does that mean? I asked. She smiled. You'll see. 2 weeks before my due date, my parents made one final move. They showed up at my house with a priest. I'm not joking. A priest. Elena, my mother said, standing on my porch with Father Sullivan from the church I hadn't attended in 10 years. We're here because we're worried about you. And about the baby? I stared at them. You brought a priest. We want to pray for you, my father said. We want to bless the baby, my mother added. And we want to make sure you're in a good place, spiritually, emotionally. I looked at Father Sullivan. He looked uncomfortable. Did they tell you what they did? I asked him. He blinked. I'm sorry? Did they tell you they stole my inheritance? That they forged my signature? That they've been telling people I'm mentally unstable to cover it up? His face went pale. They didn't, I said. Of course they didn't. My mother's smile was tight. Elena, this is exactly what I'm talking about. You're being paranoid, dramatic, and it's not healthy. I felt something snap. Get off my property, I said. Elena? Get off my property. Father Sullivan backed away quickly. I think I should go. He left. My parents stayed. You're going to regret this, my mother said, her voice low and venomous. When that baby comes and you need help, don't come crying to us. I won't, I said. She turned to leave, then stopped. You know what? I hope that baby looks like you, so you'll know exactly what it feels like to raise a mistake. And that was it. That was the moment I stopped feeling anything for her at all. Graham appeared behind me, his phone in his hand. Harrison just filed the claim. It'll be served tomorrow. I looked at him. Good. He put his arm around me. There's something else. My grandmother wants to schedule a meeting. With your parents and our lawyers. When? Next week. I thought about it. About facing them again. About sitting across a table and watching them lie. And then I thought about the baby. About Poppy. About the kind of world I wanted her to grow up in. Be honest with me. If you were in my shoes, would you just cut them off completely and protect your peace? Or would you make them repay every dollar they stole, even if it gets ugly? I took a breath. Set it up? Graham nodded. Done. The meeting was scheduled for the following Thursday. My parents arrived at the Whitmore Foundation offices, thinking it was a peace talk. They were wrong. The Whitmore Foundation offices weren't what I expected. I'd imagined something cold, corporate, intimidating. Instead, it was elegant. Warm wood paneling, leather chairs, oil paintings of landscapes and old family portraits. It felt like old money, the kind that didn't need to prove itself. My parents arrived 15 minutes late. On purpose, I assumed, a power play. But no one seemed bothered. Vivienne sat at the head of the table, perfectly composed. Charles and Sebastian flanked her. Harrison Knox and Dana Klein sat on one side, documents stacked neatly in front of them. Graham and I sat on the other side. When my parents walked in, my mother's smile was bright, too bright. Vivienne, she said warmly, extending her hand, how lovely to see you again. Vivienne didn't stand. She didn't shake her hand. She just gestured to the empty chairs. Please, sit. My mother's smile faltered, but she recovered quickly. She and my father sat down across from us. Vanessa wasn't with them. I wondered if they'd told her about this meeting at all. Thank you for coming, Vivienne said, her voice calm and measured. I know this is an unusual circumstance, but I believe clarity is important, especially when it comes to family. My father nodded. We agree. We're glad to have this chance to clear the air. Good, Vivienne said. Then let's begin. She nodded to Dana, who opened the folder in front of her. Mr. and Mrs. Carter, Dana said, her tone professional, we've completed a thorough review of the estate of Theodore and Evelyn Carter, deceased 2019. As you're aware, Mrs. Carter, you were named trustee of the trust established in their will. My mother's smile was still in place, but I saw her hands tighten in her lap. Yes, and I fulfilled that responsibility. Did you? Dana asked. Of course. Dana slid a document across the table. This is a copy of the will. As you can see, the trust was to be divided as follows. 50% to you, 25% to Elena, and 25% to Vanessa. My father glanced at the document, then at my mother. Yes, that's correct. And yet, Dana continued, sliding another document forward, the distribution records show that Elena received nothing. My mother didn't even look at the paper. That's not true. Elena received her share. Then why? Dana said calmly. Is there no record of a transfer to her account? Because, my mother hesitated, because she asked me to hold it for her. She wasn't ready to manage that kind of money. I felt my stomach turn. That's a lie. My mother's eyes snapped to me. Excuse me? I never asked you to hold anything. I didn't even know there was money. Elena, you were 19. You were emotional, impulsive. I was grieving, I said, my voice shaking, and you told me there was nothing left. You told me it all went to estate taxes and funeral costs. My mother's smile was patronizing. And you believed me because you didn't understand how these things work. Harrison leaned forward. Mrs. Carter, lying to a beneficiary about the existence of trust assets is illegal, but what's more concerning is this. He slid a third document across the table. This is an affidavit you submitted to the probate court, signed under penalty of perjury, stating that all distributions had been made in accordance with the will, including Elena's. My mother glanced at it. Yes, because they were? Then why? Harrison said, his voice still calm. Is Elena's signature forged? The room went silent. My father leaned forward, frowning. What are you talking about? Harrison pulled out another sheet. This is a signature sample from Elena's driver's license, her marriage license, and several other legal documents. And this, he pointed to the affidavit, is the signature on your court filing. It's close, but it's not a match. My father's face went pale. He turned to my mother. Denise, this is ridiculous, my mother said, her voice sharp. You're accusing me of... what? Fraud? Over a misunderstanding? It's not a misunderstanding, Dana said. It's embezzlement and forgery. And if we take this to the authorities, it's also a felony. My mother stood up abruptly. We're leaving. Sit down, Vivian said. It wasn't loud. It wasn't harsh. But my mother sat. Vivian folded her hands on the table. Mrs. Carter, I understand that this is uncomfortable, but you need to understand something. My family does not make idle threats. We do not bluff. And we do not tolerate people who harm those we care about. I'm her mother, Denise said, her voice shaking. No, Vivian said softly. You're a woman who has spent 32 years tearing down her own daughter, and now you've stolen from her. My mother's mask finally cracked. She was a mistake. Do you understand that? She wasn't planned. She wasn't wanted. And we did the best we could, but she was always... Enough, my father said quietly. Everyone turned to him. He was staring at my mother, his face gray. Denise, stop. Why? She snapped. It's the truth. She was an accident. And I'm tired of pretending otherwise. I felt Graham's hand find mine under the table. My father looked at me. For the first time in my life, I saw something like shame in his eyes. Ellie, he said quietly, I'm sorry. I didn't respond. I couldn't. Harrison spoke again. Mr. and Mrs. Carter, here's what's going to happen. You will repay Elena the full amount of her inheritance, $225,000, plus interest calculated at the statutory rate. That brings the total to approximately $267,000. My mother laughed bitterly. We don't have that kind of money. Then you'll sell assets, Harrison said. You have 90 days. And if we refuse? Then we file a lawsuit, Harrison said calmly. And we report the forgery to the district attorney's office. At which point, Mrs. Carter, you'll be looking at criminal charges. My mother's face went white. My father rubbed his temples. Can we have a moment to discuss this? No, Vivian said. You'll give us your answer now. My father looked at my mother. She said nothing. Finally, he nodded. We'll pay. Good, Harrison said. He slid a settlement agreement across the table. Sign here. My father signed. My mother didn't move. Denise, my father said quietly. She stared at the paper like it was a death sentence. And then, slowly, she picked up the pen and signed. Harrison collected the documents. You'll receive payment instructions within 48 hours. If you miss the deadline, we proceed with litigation. Understood? My father nodded. My mother said nothing. Vivienne stood. This meeting is over. My parents stood too. My father moved toward the door, but my mother lingered. She looked at me, and for a moment I thought she might apologize. Instead, she said, "You'll regret this." "No," I said quietly. "I won't." She turned and walked out. My father paused at the door. He looked back at me, his expression unreadable. "I'm sorry, Ellie," he said again. "For all of it." And then he was gone. Graham pulled me into his arms, and I let myself collapse into him. "It's over," he whispered. "Is it?" I asked. Vivienne's voice was soft. "Yes, Elena, it is." I looked at her, this woman I barely knew, who'd fought for me harder than my own mother ever had. "Thank you," I whispered. She smiled. "Family protects family, and your family now." 3 weeks later, the money arrived in my account. All of it, with interest. I stared at the balance on my phone, and for the first time in months, I cried. Not because of the money, but because I'd finally won. Poppy was born on a Tuesday. 7 pounds, 4 ounces, dark hair, Graham's eyes. Perfect. I held her in the hospital room, Graham beside me, and I felt something I'd never felt before. Completely, utterly whole. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. "Congratulations. I'd like to meet her." I deleted it. Another text from my father. "Please, Ellie, let us be grandparents." I blocked the number. Vivienne arrived an hour later with flowers and a cashmere blanket, the softest thing I'd ever felt. "She's beautiful," Vivienne said, looking down at Poppy with something like wonder. "She is," I agreed. Vivienne sat down beside me. "Have they tried to contact you?" "Yes." "And?" I said no. She nodded approvingly. "Good. Do you think I'm being cruel?" I asked quietly. Vivienne looked at me, her expression soft but firm. "Elena, you're being a mother. You're protecting your child. There's nothing cruel about that." "But they're her grandparents." "No," Vivienne said. "They're people who share your DNA. Grandparents show up. They support. They love unconditionally. Your parents have done none of those things." I looked down at Poppy, sleeping peacefully in my arms. "I don't want her to ever feel the way I felt," I whispered. "She won't," Vivienne said, "because you won't let her." Over the next few months, my parents tried everything. Gifts left on the porch, cards in the mail, messages passed through distant relatives. My mother even showed up at the house once, unannounced. I didn't open the door. Graham installed a camera system. We documented everything. And then, one day, the messages stopped. I didn't know if they'd given up or if they were just regrouping. But I didn't care anymore, because I'd built something new. A family that actually felt like one. Graham's family became mine. Vivienne visited every week, always with some small, thoughtful gift for Poppy. Sebastian sent books. Bella sent clothes. Charles and Margot video called from wherever they were traveling, always asking how we were. Always genuinely interested. I'd spent my entire life thinking I was the problem. That I was too much, too emotional, too broken. But the truth was simpler. I wasn't broken. I was just surrounded by people who needed me to be. One afternoon, when Poppy was 6 months old, I got a letter. Not an email, a letter. From my father. I almost threw it away. but something made me open it. Ellie, I know you don't want to hear from me. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I need you to know. I'm sorry for all of it. For not protecting you. For letting your mother treat you the way she did. For stealing from you. I was weak. I still am. I don't expect you to respond. I don't expect anything. I just wanted you to know that you were never the mistake. We were. Dad, I read it 3 times. And then I put it in a drawer and closed it. Maybe one day I'd respond. Maybe I wouldn't. But for now, I didn't need to. Because I'd finally learned something my parents never taught me. Love isn't about blood. It's about showing up. It's about protecting the people who matter. It's about telling the truth, even when it's hard. And it's about knowing when to walk away. I looked at Poppy, asleep in her crib, and I made her a promise. She would never wonder if she was wanted. She would never have to beg for love. She would never be called a mistake. Because I would make sure she knew every single day that she was the best thing that ever happened to me. Graham came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, and I meant it. He kissed my temple. "I'm proud of you." "For what?" "For choosing yourself. For choosing her." He nodded toward Poppy. "For not letting them win." I leaned back into him. "They didn't win. But I'm not sure I did either." "Yes, you did," he said quietly. "You broke the cycle." And he was right. I had. If this story hit you in any way, please like and subscribe to Revenge Bite. And if you want more stories with bigger twists and real consequences, check out the other videos on the channel. There's a lot more waiting for you. Because some stories deserve to be told. Some truths deserve to be heard. And some mistakes, they were never mistakes at all.